Hey cactus friends, it's Jenny from Cookie's Cacti. These Astrophytum probably look pretty familiar. It has been about a month and a half since we did that massive repotting of 531 Astrophytum seedlings. So I have 3 trays, these 2 up here, and then there's one down there, and they contain all the Astrophytum from tray number 1 and tray number 2 of our Cactus Seed Soil Battle. For those of you who did watch my very long 7-hour repotting video, you would have seen in there that there was one point when I was repotting the seedlings from the Uni-Gro mix and I realized that I had made a mistake. So what happened was I had mixed the labels between the Miracle-Gro seed starter with perlite and the Uni-Gro mix that was straight out of the bag. So those were actually swapped. And so this video, I want to do a revised conclusion, including charts and numbers for the seedlings, because when I repotted all of these, I could actually get a real count of how many seedlings were in each pot. For example, some of the things I couldn't tell was that there were several 2-headed seedlings, and this one you can, kind of tell that it's 2-headed just by looking at it like that. But a couple of these are not obvious at all. Like this looks like 2 plants, this looks like 2 plants, but in fact, they're actually only 1 plant each. So that affects things like the actual seedling count. So I will go over those charts again, and the charts will contain the correction on the whole label swap. I did go back, I think, to every single video in this entire playlist and series and added, I think, a note, and I might have pinned a comment. I know I probably added a note for every video description talking about how those labels had been swapped. So that definitely affects our conclusion for the commercial mixes, but it does not affect our overall conclusion of the overall winner, which was the East Coast Camanchaca soil, which none of those seedlings are here anymore because I gave all of those pots of seedlings away in the East Coast Camanchaca mix. So since we did the repotting in, gosh, I guess it was during the Thanksgiving break, not every seedling has survived the transplant or lived till now, and I actually left a dead one here on purpose just so that you can see. And there have been others that have died. Not that many. I would say less than 5 have died off, but definitely some have died. And maybe it's even more than 5 because some of these really little ones, it's very hard to tell. Let me go grab a pointer. Yeah, so like in here you can see actually that's a dead seedling right there. And there are probably others of the little ones that have died off, but you can barely even see the seedling there in the first place, and then when they die, you really don't know. Like here, I think, that's something dead, yes. I see some spines on there. So not everything survived. Some did die, and it's okay. It's expected. As of today, it's actually January 12th as I'm filming. So the seedlings from tray number 1 are 1 year and 2 months old, so 14 months old. And then the seedlings from tray number 2 are just about to turn a year old. I was just checking the back of these labels, and they were sowed on January 15 of 2024. So they're just a few days away from turning a year old. So just to recap is the way that I repotted all these seedlings is that there's actually 2 types of soils in here. I've marked on the labels which seedlings are potted into which soil type. So one of the soils is Miracle-Gro seed starter with Miracle-Gro perlite, which I mixed a 3-to-1 ratio, so 3 parts perlite to 1 part seed starter. And the second mix is a Uni-Gro mix, which now I'm starting to forget, but I think I did something like 2 parts inorganic to 1 part Uni-Gro. And the 2 parts inorganic is a mix between pumice and red lava rock. I think red lava, it's not quite equal pumice to red lava rock because I ran out of red lava rock, but it's like 2-to-1 on inorganic to Uni-Gro mix. And then we'll kind of see as time goes on if there are any differences in how the seedlings grow in those 2 mixes. So there's actually 1 soil type here that I repotted into the 2 different mixes. And those are the seedlings from the Mike's Rare Plant Lofa Pro Seed Starter. So there are 6 pots here that were started in that Lofa Pro Seed Starter. 3 of the pots are repotted in the Miracle-Gro seed starter mix with perlite, and 3 of the pots are potted in the Uni-Gro with the lava rock and pumice. So we can kind of see over time if there's any noticeable difference in how these seedlings grow. But right now, it's only been about a month and a half since we repotted. I've been watering these seedlings about every 2 to 3 weeks or so, and it's winter right now. I do have little fans that are running over the shelves here. I've turned it off right now just to reduce the background noise. As of now, I can already see that these seedlings have been growing since we repotted them, so that's kind of fun. So I did take pictures of these trays to capture most of the pots, so I can actually do, an eyeball of the picture versus what I see. And these guys, they're growing. Of course, Astrophytum, they don't grow super fast, but it is noticeable. Like here you can see that there's new growth on the spines. These were the worst performing soil was the Miracle-Gro Cactus Citrus Palm Mix. I repotted those seedlings into the Miracle-Gro seed starter mix with perlite, and they're already doing better. I was revisiting the series finale video just so I can remember what in the world I had said on the video. At that time when I showed footage of the seedlings from this Cactus Citrus Palm Mix, they were desiccated, they were not looking happy. But in here you can see that they're plumping up. They're not looking horrendously desiccated anymore. So there is a difference on moving the seedlings into a more gritty soil. So one trend that we could see as we were doing that massive repotting is that the larger seedlings tend to have larger root systems, whereas the smaller ones have much smaller root systems. Let me move down to the lower tray. Cookie's down by the lower tray. Cookie, what do you think about your seedlings? They're doing well, huh? Huh? You like them? So this lower tray has more of the smaller seedlings, mostly from actually all the Rob Romero mixes are down here. These 4 pots in the front are the Rob Romero mix that was started with my native soil from tray number 1. And then these other RR marked ones are the Rob Romero mixes from tray number 2, where instead of using my native soil, I had replaced that component with a commercial mix. So one set of these Rob Romero mixes from tray number 1 is planted in the Miracle-Gro seed starter with perlite, and the other one is planted in the Uni-Gro mix that I talked about. So we can kind of watch over time how these seedlings develop. And you can see that these again are from the tray number 1. These are planted in Miracle-Gro seed starter with Miracle-Gro perlite. And they're starting to get some size to them. Some fun seedlings down here. And going forward, I think I will come back and do periodic updates on these seedlings, especially when we can move them outdoors when the warm season returns. I definitely want to show that as well. It could be good or it could be bad results, but I guess I'll just show whatever it ends up being. But while we're at it, I might as well show you the Ariocarpus seedlings as well. So I have not touched the Ariocarpus seedlings. They are still in their original pots. I just, they're not overgrowing their pots, so there's no reason to repot them, except actually for the very underperforming soils, there actually is a reason to repot them. But I've mostly just left them alone. I might do periodic updates on these as well, because I think I definitely have reached this critical point of when I tend to lose the Ariocarpus seedlings. Like I can get them started and going for about a year or so, and then I start to struggle. I don't know what it is, and I can see it here too. Like I was rewatching that series finale video, and I swear that these Ariocarpus seedlings were greener in there and happier looking, and they're darker now. I think they look more desiccated. I don't know what's happening. I don't know if I'm giving them too much water, too much cover, or too little water. I have no idea. So this label hasn't been corrected yet. Even in the Ariocarpus, I had swapped the Uni-Gro and the Miracle-Gro seed starter labels. So this is actually Miracle-Gro seed starter, even though it's labeled Uni-Gro. And I can tell just by lifting the pot because it's so light. And this is Uni-Gro, even though it's labeled wrong. But this is considerably heavier of a mix just by weight compared to the the Miracle-Gro. Yeah, I don't know. I just can't grow Ariocarpus. I can start them and then I can't keep them going. I just don't understand it. Anyway, let me go show you some of the numbers, the revised charts for these Astrophytum. These are the same charts that I showed in the series finale of this series. It's kind of funny because it's actually a false series finale because look at us, we're back again. So for tray number 1, of course we don't have the East Coast Kamanchaka pots anymore, and I didn't get to repot them, so I never got to truly count how many seedlings are in there. So we'll just keep what we had before, 70 seedlings in the East Coast Kamanchaka mix. And then you can see on the left-hand side, I have a table with all the numbers, and on the right-hand side, I have the graphical chart, so you can really visually see it. So East Coast Kamanchaka remains number 1. In terms of the count, so Rob Romero mix in my native soil is number 2 at 54 seedlings. So here's where the data changes. It used to be that Uni-Gro was in 3rd place on the count here. It's not. It's actually the Miracle-Gro seed starter with perlite that's in the number 3 spot in terms of seedling count at 51 seedlings. Then comes Mike's Rare Plant, Loafer Pro Seed Starter, 45 seedlings, and then comes Uni-Gro straight out of the bag at 36 seedlings. And then the last place, you know, we already knew, was the Miracle-Gro Cactus Citrus Palm Mix at 17 seedlings. So you can see here, the Miracle-Gro Seed Starter did very, very well, and the Uni-Gro straight out of the bag is actually second to last place. Of the soils in tray number 1, of the commercial mixes, like any mix that used a commercial mix, I would say the Miracle-Gro seed starter with perlite actually won in terms of both seedling count and the size and quality of the seedling as well. So that's where the big correction comes in. It's not Uni-Gro straight out of the bag. It's actually Miracle-Gro. And that's really funny because this was the whole thing I was trying to test from the very beginning, because the Miracle-Gro seed starter with perlite has been my go-to seed starter soil since somebody first told me about it on Instagram. Somebody messaged me. This was way in the beginning of when I just started growing cactus from seed. I had been using, I think, Kellogg cactus mix straight out of the bag my very first time because I had no idea what I was doing. My first Astrophytum like seedlings ever, first cactus seedlings ever. And they were growing, but they were growing really slow. And somebody messaged me on Instagram just sharing, saying, hey, you know, I know that old school growers in LA, some of them use Miracle-Gro seed starter with perlite. And I think at the time he showed me it was 1-to-1. And I'm like, you know, why don't I give it a try? It's so easy to find. You can find it at many big box stores. And there's kind of nothing really to lose just to try it. So I repotted those very slow-growing Astrophytum seedlings into that Miracle-Gro mix, and I could see a difference. Like, it was really obvious. And so I've been using that for not just Astrophytum and Ariocarpus, but for other genus as well. And I really wanted to know, is it really the best for the commercial mixes? Or also, you know, on the premium mixes, does it make a difference if I use a premium mix? And we can see here that the answer is kind of yes, it does, but it's just the premium mixes have such a cost difference that you have to weigh. Does that cost difference make the returns worth it? And you're going to have to answer that question for yourself because it depends on what you're growing. So for me, if I were growing some really special seeds that are very difficult to grow, I probably would go ahead and try the East Coast Kamanchaka and spend the money on it because it would give me the best chance for success. For me on the Astrophytum, you know, Astrophytum are not that difficult to grow, and I have tons of seed from my own plant. So in this case, it makes more sense just to use a commercial mix that's inexpensive and easy to find. Once again, on this chart, the most important takeaway and correction is that the Miracle-Gro seed starter with perlite and the Uni-Gro have swapped places. So now let's look at the data from tray number 2. Once again, these seedlings are 10 weeks behind the seedlings from tray number 1, so they're a little bit younger. And the rankings haven't changed here. This is unaffected by my mistake in tray number 1 on having those 2 labels swapped. The rankings are exactly the same as it was in this that I said in the series finale, but some of the numbers have been updated because I could actually get a proper count from doing the repotting. No like huge changes. It might have been like a change of maybe 2 seedlings or something like that. So this data remains about the same. Now let's look at all the data from tray number 1 and 2 combined. So here I've ranked it from, in terms of seedling count, from the highest down to the lowest. All the blue bars here are the mixes from tray number 1. All the red bars are the mixes from tray number 2. And you can see that the tray number 2 experiments definitely improved on numbers and started to approach what we saw in East Coast Common Chaga. Never quite got there. That 70 count we didn't achieve with any of the other soils. But definitely the Astrophytum seedling count improved in tray number 2 compared to tray number 1. So the most important thing here in terms of the correction is that Uni-Gro used to fall somewhere in the middle of this chart. But now that we've found that mistake and corrected it, you can see that the Miracle-Gro seed starter with perlite now falls somewhere in the middle of the chart, whereas Uni-Gro actually becomes the second to last place soil mix amongst all of the soils. So now when we look at this chart, we can see that there is a trend that the 2 commercial cactus mixes straight out of the bag did the worst amongst all of these soil mixes in terms of the Astrophytum count. So the absolute last place is the Miracle-Gro Cactus Citrus Palm Mix. However, when we cut it with inorganics, it did much better. And we saw this pretty consistently, whether we cut it with the Japanese bonsai mix or if we used even the raw Romero mix, the numbers improved significantly. And you can see that Uni-Gro here also, it's second to last place. It did better than the Miracle-Gro straight out of the bag, but it underperformed compared to the other mixes. And it's kind of the same consistent conclusion as when we cut the Uni-Gro with either pumice, which was my adult soil, or if we cut it with the bonsai mix, or we used the raw Romero mix, the numbers started to improve pretty noticeably. The other interesting thing about the Uni-Gro when you cut it with inorganics was that in my adult soil, where I did 3 parts pumice to 1 part Uni-Gro, it did okay, but it didn't do the best. And then we look at the Uni-Gro that was cut with the bonsai mix and the raw Romero mix with Uni-Gro, the numbers start to get better and better. So I would say, in terms of conclusions, Uni-Gro straight out of the bag, too dense, too organic. The adult soil was a little too inorganic. And then these other 2, cutting it with bonsai mix, using the raw Romero mix, it may have been a much better in-between area that got some pretty good results. I also saw a YouTube comment by Adam of Baker Sucks. He grows so many Astrophytum. Astrophytum is probably his number 1 focus in growing. And he left a comment saying that he does a 1-to-1 ratio of Uni-Gro to pumice when he grows cactus from seed. So I think that's pretty consistent with what we're seeing here. So somewhere in between my adult soil and then pure Uni-Gro straight out of the bag, there's a sweet spot in there that does quite well for growing cactus from seed. So what conclusion can we make from this? There is no one correct answer to this whole seed soil question. There's multiple mixes that can do well. I would just probably pick what I have on hand. Now, the thing is that there's one advantage to the Miracle-Gro seed starter mix that to me is of high value, and that is that you can feel the weight. The seed starter mix is very light when it's dry, and then after you water it and it has moisture content to it, it gets much heavier. So I can just go pick up the pot and I'll know roughly how dry or how wet that particular pot is. And to me, that's a big plus on the Miracle-Gro seed starter mix. So that's just me though. There was one really nice upside to this whole mistake that I made, which when I found out, I was like, oh my gosh. And the silver lining is Miracle-Gro Seed Starter and Miracle-Gro Perlite is very easy to find, and I think it may be available nationwide, at least within North America. So the availability is a huge plus, whereas Uni-Gro is much harder to find. And I've heard from multiple folks around the country that Uni-Gro is not available in their region. So thank you all for joining me on this update and on the conclusion revision. And I apologize for making that mistake of mixing the labels, but I mean, I even duped myself too. But what can you do? I'll just have to be more careful going forward. At least of the two mixes that are here now, they're very easy to tell just by picking up the pot. But in the end, we can see that whether you have Miracle-Gro or Uni-Gro on hand, you can make it work, and you can make it work really, really well. So I hope you enjoyed this update. Now we have the official conclusions. And I will be back later to give more updates to see how these seedlings grow and whether we see any difference between the Miracle-Gro mix and the Uni-Gro mix now. I won't be doing monthly updates on these guys because probably won't be able to see that much of a difference. But I'll come back once I can actually, visually see that there's something different that we can look at. Talk to y'all later. Happy growing, y'all. Take care. Bye-bye.